Last Sunday, Chris claimed the outright World Lightweight Championship after a week of intense competition in which he won the course race, Mistral class, marathon and came outright second in the slalom event. After a gruelling 24-hour flight from the States, Chris arrived home this morning. Chris says the build-up to the championships was ideal.
You can find the conditions the same as in Corpus, somewhere on the coast, but it's supposed to be the windiest state in America, so I don't think we get as much consistency as they do over there.
What was the competition like? Obviously you're competing against the best in the world, but how tough was it?
It was quite stiff competition, especially in the early piece of the course racing, where I was racing in lighter winds against a competitor who was 10 kilos lighter than me, so I really had to work to keep up with him in the light winds. But as the regatta progressed, the winds picked up and I ended up with a fairly good lead towards the end.
Chris's effort was even more outstanding against highly competitive European teams, who, while still rated as amateurs, have the backing of wealthy sponsors, unlike Chris, who has had to fund many of his overseas campaigns himself. However, Chris says he won't have to travel far for his next major event.
I'll be straight back into training again for the Windsurfer Worlds, which are in Belmont over the Christmas period. That's my immediate plans to win them if everything goes right.
All year, the entrants have been working hard to raise a record $100,000 for the Spastic Centre at Valentine. Tonight, all that effort is to be rewarded with a glamour judging and presentation of the Miss Hunter Valley and Central Coast and the Miss Highest Fundraiser. Earlier this afternoon, the entrants each spent a nervous half hour with the judges at Charlestown, who assessed them on personality, commitment to helping other people, grooming and public speaking abilities. Later, the entrants put finishing touches to their outfits, makeup and hair. Tonight's winner will go on to represent the Hunter Valley and Central Coast in the Miss New South Wales judging in Sydney later this month, and possibly on to Canberra for the Miss Australia crown early next year.
The horror of the Grafton bus smash heightened awareness of critical issues confronting the road transport industry. Since that catastrophic smash, a number of police campaigns directed at heavy transport kept the trucking industry high on the political agenda. Now, truckies fear that a proposed tightening of the licence point demerit system could cost experienced truckers their licences and result in a higher proportion of novice drivers taking over. But there's more at stake, according to trucking operator John Farraher.
I think that the accident certainly has shown that what we're going to be talking about tonight is a fact, that the road system is failing, that we need self-regulation within the industry, we need to change, we need to look at ourselves. And as far as licensing goes, the current proposal by the state government basically will have most experienced drivers off the roads, and that's going to have a terrible effect.
Tonight's meeting will be the second of 4 to be held across the state. It's co-hosted by the New South Wales Road Transport Association and the Long Distance Road Transport Association. Both believe the time is right for truck drivers to confront the problems in their industry.
There have been some horrific road accidents out there. We do have to do something about it. We feel that, in fact, The full fault does not lie with the driver. There are many, many questions out there to be answered, and that's what we're looking at now.
Organisers expect a strong turnout. John Farraher says it's in the truckies' interests to attend.
Well, it's very important because it could be their life in the industry. If transport drivers, owner-operators aren't there tonight, they could very well find that they won't be part of the industry next year because their licence is imperative, and there's certainly a threat to that licence.
The girl's naked body was found dumped in Bitu bush off Griffith Avenue on Stockton Beach. Fears were first held for the 14-year-old when she failed to return home after a friend's birthday party at the former North Stockton Surf Club last night. At 9:30 this morning, the girl's family and friends began a search.
A group of us went one way and a group of us went the other, and me and he was walking along the beach and we looked up, just in the gully over there, and we saw a body.
It appears that she'd been bashed with a heavy implement. We believe that to be a rock.
Detectives cordoned off the area and began questioning local residents. Stockton's small community was stunned by the news.
Well, whoever done it, sick.
The Westpac rescue helicopter was called in for police to photograph the scene, while officers on the ground combed sand dunes for clues. The death of the 14-year-old will raise questions of adult supervision and the control of alcohol consumption at the teen party. Late this afternoon, the body was taken to the Newcastle morgue for forensic tests. Police are now interviewing more than 40 young people who were with the girl before her death. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Pro Classic got underway on Newcastle Beach this morning in glorious conditions and a good 1 to 1.5 metre swell. Interest for the day centred around the men's finals. In the first semi, and Sydney ski rider Danny Hale took the first wave and set a cracking pace. Each rider milked the wave as long as he could, riding them into the shore to maximise points and pull off a radical manoeuvre close to the beach to impress the judges. Current world champion 17-year-old Rhys Duncan Jr. from Grafton says the competition throughout the 2 days has been intense.
Well, most of the competitors here do compete internationally. We're all doing like aerials, slashes. There's even been a few corkscrews tried, but no one's pulled them off yet.
Port Stephens youngster Jason Moffat was not about to let some big names or reputations throw him and set about putting the locals on the board managing this radical dive. Roger Black, a late inclusion to the semis, was not going to let his chance slip and rode every wave like his life depended on it. However, the day and the championship title belonged to twice world champion and current Australian champion, Sydney's John Christensen. "17-year-old Rachel in all white met Stockton's Emily Fisher in the final, played at the district courts. Rachel opened up early in the game, displaying a smashing forehand and a host of tricks collected from competing on the world circuit. Rachel is now ranked 70th in the world and is a 3-time winner of the district singles. However, Emily was not about to let the title slip from her grasp without a fight and provided plenty of resistance. The 15-year-old Stockton schoolgirl was keen to impress and put up a strong fight, finally succumbing in straight sets, 6-love, 6-love. In a repeat of the district junior singles final in June, Coal Point's Richard Nichols met William O'Neill in the men's title. In a stiff northeast breeze, the two slogged it out, taking the 2 sets to tiebreakers. Richard Nichols, in the navy blue shirt, was seeded 3 for the event and set about putting his stamp on the game. However, number 1 ranked seed William proved why he was given the top billing, running out winner 7-6, 7-6. Local drivers dominated the heats with wins to Maitland's Stu Robertson, Newcastle's Peter Garrett, Bob Brewer and John Pine. But the aggressive racing also took its toll on several favourites, including John Brown when he crashed heavily into the fence with Barry Lee. Pine went on to take out the 6-lap Stars Trophy Dash, but damage to a gearbox seal prevented the state champion from starting in the big race. Robertson in the number 4 Corvette and Garrett in his blue Firebird led the 50-lap race before both suffered mechanical problems. Robertson went infield, but Garrett continued and dropped back in the field. South Coast driver Nick Girdlestone, driving the Camiro number 0, was left out in front with 31 laps to go and was never headed. Canberra's Peter Bink and Brisbane's Keith Rubach engaged in an exciting 30-lap duel, which saw the Canberra driver take second spot. Garrett was the best of the locals, coming home in 6th place.
Racing out wide, Big Note began only fairly today.
The Hunter is one of the biggest greyhound racing regions in the country, and according to the RSPCA, local trainers are also some of the biggest users of live baits. When racing, greyhounds chase an artificial hare. Many trainers believe to get the best results on the track, the dogs must be blooded in practice.
What they simply do is tie a live animal, a rabbit or whatever, onto a lure. It hurdles down the track, the dog's released, it chases it, the lure's slowed down, and that animal is literally ripped to pieces.
It is illegal to use live baits or have them on a greyhound property. However, the RSPCA says the law is flouted every day.
It's a daily occurrence on every training track, not only in the Hunter Valley, but certainly right throughout New South Wales.
With limited finances, the RSPCA can't hope to wipe out the problem and would like to see the penalties increase. In the meantime, the Society is pushing for the maximum fines for those who are caught. Sawyers Gully men Patrick Murphy and Norman Kirk were charged with the offence today. A raid on a greyhound track in Majors Road near Cessnock early this morning uncovered 13 rabbits, allegedly to be used as live bait. The two men face fines of up to $2,000 and 6 months in jail. Murphy also allegedly had an unlicensed rifle and a silencer and has been charged with firearm offences. The Society has vowed the arrests will continue until the message gets through.
The clothing was found here at the disused Jetspress terminal which backs onto Throsby Creek. Garments were scattered randomly across a loading bay. All were intact and revealed little to police. Nevertheless, they hold grave fears that a young woman may have been the victim of an attack.
There's a fear that the owner of the clothing may have been the victim of some assault or met with foul play of some sort.
Police suspect the clothing was left at the terminal overnight, a suspicion backed up by a neighbour woken by a zealous watchdog.
Oh, about 3 o'clock, the dog was going crazy, going off his head. I just got up and come out and had a look at my car.
So it would seem that someone did walk by here in the early hours of the morning?
I'd say something happened to make him go off his head like he did, yeah.
An aerial search of the Throsby Creek area using the NBN helicopter failed to locate any further clues, leaving detectives baffled by the possible victim's identity and whereabouts. Their fears fuelled by the fact that murdered Newcastle prostitute Cheryl Birchall was found barely 150 metres away from the site of today's discovery. Police say it's too early to say if there's any connection with the Birchall murder, but they're not ruling out the possibility. Mayfield detectives have asked anyone who may recognise these garments to contact them immediately. A white Esprit blouse, a stone-washed denim skirt, red ribbed tights, black stilettos, underwear and a single blue sock.
We'd ask that any member of the public who has knowledge of any of these articles of clothing to contact either myself or any members of the Mayfield detective staff at Mayfield Police Station.
Anyone with information should contact Mayfield Police on 60 1000. Meantime, police have confirmed human remains found today at Eraring on the western shores of Lake Macquarie are those of an elderly woman who went missing from the Erilyn Lodge nursing home in June. She was 70-year-old Evelyn Jones.
Apparently she just wandered out of the home and wandered off and nobody's seen her since then.
Today's search was sparked by the discovery last night of a human skull. Further remains and items of clothing were found with the help of an excavator who had spotted bones on an adjoining property. Police say there's no evidence of foul play.
Everything appears to be intact, and apparently the skull might have been carried away by an animal of some sort and just dropped down the paddock.
It was training as usual at the Lambton Pool today for the stars of the Qantas meet. The Hunter Club's performance at the statewide trials at Warringah Pool over the weekend were nothing short of sensational. Of its 30-member team, 5 set new records, sufficient to give the club second placing in a meet contested by more than 50 clubs. The 5 to share in the glory were Angela Matthews with the open 100-metre and 200-metre butterfly, Philippa Reeves with the 100-metre freestyle and the 100-metre backstroke, Andrew Cairns with the 200-metre butterfly, Amanda Hector the 12 years 200-metre freestyle, and Jamie Jenkin the 14-15 years boys 1500-metre freestyle. No, both Angela and Philippa have been included in the Hunters' 7-member team, of which Olympic swimmer Donna Proctor is also a member, to contest the Commonwealth trials in Sydney on December 15. Philippa, at 12 years, will be the youngest swimmer there, but coach Eric Arnold believes she and all the team are on target to take the meet by storm.
We're going into the quality part now, and then it'll be all go from then on, and then we'll come down to a taper about 12 days out of the meet.
You must have been happy with that performance?
Very, very happy. A couple of state records, which it goes along, well, because most of the swimmers at the moment are in full work, and this is the times that they did were little bits of gifts that would come along on the way.
Slot cars, we've all played with a set or owned one, but of course that was when we were kids. Or was it?
These aren't a kid's plaything, no. These are racing cars.
Twice a week, up to 30 adults gather in an upstairs room in Budgewoi for some very serious racing. This is definitely not kids' stuff. For a start, those blurs of colour can cost upwards of $400 each, so you wouldn't want a child crashing them, would you?
So there must be something wrong with the car, I think.
Can you see anything wrong with the car?
No, not really. Might be me driving.
And these adults have jobs. That rubs off trackside as well. Peter Archer tunes racing cars and repairs high-tech electronic equipment when he's not creating new wizardry for his miniature speed demons.
Basically, it shorts out the hand control, which eliminates losses that are built up in the hand control. So it's just basically like a turbo.
Peter's spent about $6,000 on his passion so far, but has won national and state titles. Convinced yet that this is no game? Maybe the team T-shirts and hand-painted cars will do it for you, or the strictly enforced regulation parts, or perhaps the race wheels kept in airtight containers in the fridge so they'll remain in top shape. Put all that together and you'll get some idea of the electric atmosphere when 8 dedicated individuals compete in a major race. Today was intense enough, and it was just a workout for the big Martin Davidson Trophy next weekend. Drivers will travel from all over the state to try to wrest the title from Peter, but he says his Group 27 is running like a dream, and once those new bearings bed in, well, that 2.8-second lap record should be nervous. Ross Hampton, NBN News.
Holy heck, Batman, the Batmobile in Newcastle. As part of a worldwide crime-fighting promotional tour, the 6-metre fiberglass machine, mounted on a Chevy chassis with a 454 V8 engine, is definitely designed for action.
Intimidating, dark, mysterious, macho, rude even. It certainly has a statement of its own to make, the new sensational Batmobile.
For some, the presence of the Batmobile was all just a little too much. For others, a memory that will never be forgotten. Organisers claim the car is fully functional, clocking 0 to 100 kilometres per hour in 3.7 seconds. But for the top speed, well, that's a secret.
Top speed is totally classified, known only to Mr. B. Wayne of Gotham City.
Although not actually used in the movie, this Batmobile will be travelling the world for the next 2 or 3 years, promoting Batman 1, Batman 2 and maybe even Batman 3. Well, being in the crime-fighting business doesn't come cheap. The car is estimated to be worth around $600,000. Warner Brothers have insured it for more than $2 million. Well, they tell me it's got a V8 under the hood. Let's put it to the test. To the Batcave. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
TABs throughout the Hunter Valley were under siege from 7:30 this morning, with patrons at the Toronto and Hamilton branches spilling onto the footpaths in order to get that once-a-year bet on the Melbourne Cup. A steady flow of punters continued right throughout the morning, and just before they jumped, a flood of last-minute wagers went on the more fancied runners, such as Empire Rose, Kosh King and Stylish Century. At the end of the quickest 3,200 metres on record, Terrific emerged the victor, along with the New South Wales TAB.
We've grossed 24.5 million in the state, and the Hunter usually takes about 5% or a bit over on that. So we're looking at about 1.5 million on the Cup.
Will that create records?
Oh yes, 18.8% increase on last year, and that was a record last year. So it's been a good day.
Terrific was a bit of a bolter, a great run in the Cup. What was it like? Were there a few people that backed Terrific?
We've had a fair few back through. Of course, there's a lot that weren't on him, but yeah, a lot of people very happy.
The storm gathered force at Bulga and peaked at Broke before heading east towards Bacolban. Pelting hail hurled on by wind gusts of more than 100 kilometres an hour smashed windows, tore down sheds and flattened trees in a storm the town will never forget.
Hail everywhere. It was hanging over the gutters. The ground was just 6 inches thick. Against the walls it would have been a foot deep, and it was just, the whole village was totally white, absolutely white. It was just, I have never ever seen anything like it.
One man saw extensions to his house ripped down before his eyes.
Came right through, demolished this section of the house completely.
Broke's business is grape growing. Now, many of its 400 hectares of vineyards have been damaged. Lindeman's Wines grows 40% of its Hunter Valley grapes here. Their crops are severely affected, but they're not the only ones who are seeing damage to a harvest they'll now never reap.
The hail was very severe, as you can see. It was something like, and it was very windy. It was... My way of interpreting it is...
it was a roar.
It was a roar,
yes.
And it was something like firing a machine gun into a grapevine. We average 7 tonne an acre. Just looking at them, I'd be lucky to pick 1 tonne an acre.
Today, that tale is being echoed throughout most of the Broke region. St Joseph's Winery says 80% of its 30-hectare crop has been wiped out. John Tulloch Vineyard says only half is left of its 20 hectares. Broke and its nearby regions are now assessing the total damage bill, which could lead into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Willie Lafitte for NBN News.